Welcome to Chai with Ping. This is Ping Robert. In this podcast, I cover immigrant stories, cross-cultural experiences, and minority issues. Join me with a cup of chai and take a listen. Hey guys, welcome back to Chai with Ping. My name is Ping and I am your host for the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to my show. If you're a new listener, welcome and join our gang of Chai with Ping. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back to the show. Hopefully you will enjoy this episode as usual. And today, before we start with our Chai Time topic of learning English, I would like to invite you, if you haven't subscribed or followed us, please do click that button on your app, whatever you listen to this episode from, and you will get a new episode notification every time. Also, if you like my show, you can share some encouragement and support by reviewing my show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm also available on Facebook or Instagram. You can check out more pictures and also have more interaction with me. Send me feedback or thoughts and share your stories with me. Also, if you want to keep your privacy, feel free to email me. My email is also in the episode note. All right, today's agenda will be about my background of learning English, how I started, how long I started in different ways of learning. And I will talk a little bit about my motivation of learning English and also how I practice along the years. And later, a little bit of my school system, like how I actually major in English in the junior college. And later, some of the lifelong habits that I have built over these years. And then in the end, I will answer some questions that sent from the listeners. Are you ready? Let's get started. So today we're going to talk about how I learned English over all these years. Right now, I'm 35 years old, and I started learning English at the age of 12, I will say, officially. I went back to Taiwan with my parents and my brother when I was 2.5 years old. I listened to Sesame Street and some TV shows or Disney movies on TV. However, my mother tongue is still Mandarin Chinese, and I totally forgot all the English I spoke in the US when I went back to Taiwan. So I didn't really like English, to be honest, because I felt that was just a subject in elementary school when I was in the 5th grade. And I couldn't master it because a lot of kids were sent to cram school to learn English. But in our home, my parents didn't send us to learn English on a special, specific time or classes. So I just never really liked English when I was in elementary school because I couldn't do well. And so by the time when I graduated from the elementary school, my parents wanted to give me a graduation gift. Since then, since my grandparents and my uncle already moved to Australia, and they thought, this could be a great summer gift. They sent me to an English language school, an ESL school, and then I can stay with my relatives. And that is relatively cheaper because it will save us the rent, homestay fees, or even grocery, like the food. So room and board is there, and then so my parents only needed to pay for the classes. So then I went with my grandparents to Australia, Perth to be exact. And then I was sent after a few days to an ESL school, which my grandparents used to go as well. So we took the train, and I remember when I first entered the classroom, there were a few kids, maybe 5 kids and a teacher. And at that time, I couldn't understand most of the things. So the teacher was trying to be dramatic and perform just to act it out what she's trying to do. And then they're very experienced, actually. So they have their many classes in the building. And then all the teachers have different students. And usually the classes are smaller than 15 kids. A lot of them were Asian like me. And also they had like study tours or study abroad tours, that kind of groups. So they will be put into different classes as well. But me as a solo learner, um, I I couldn't understand anything. And then also in my class, there was nobody speaking Mandarin. So then I remember I spent the first day just, staring at a teacher and looking at what people are doing next to me. And I went home. I took some handouts and I went home. My grandparents didn't help me with the homework, so I read through some of the things and didn't know what to do. They didn't know either, so then I went to bed. The next day, I went back to school. I remember they were having a quiz, and the classmate next to me, I think her name is Stephanie. She said that, oh, you need to take out your pen and pencils and notepad to write down the words that the teacher is saying. But I couldn't write out anything because I didn't study. So then the teacher tried to explain to me like it's homework. I need to do this. I need to remember it. And then the next day we have another quiz. I used to be, I think I still am, a very competitive kid. So I couldn't understand what was going on and then couldn't do my homework alone. But at that time, when I call home, my parents told me that, oh, you better study very hard and focus in classes because, the tuition is very expensive. So then I was so frustrated and stressed. So then I remember within a week, one night, probably the second or the third night, I was sitting in bed, and my grandma passed by, and then she was like, "Oh, are you going to bed soon?" And then actually at that time, I was weeping like silently. And then they came over. They were like, "Oh, what's happening? Like, why are you crying?" I'm like, "Oh, I couldn't understand what's going on, and I don't understand. I don't know what to do, and then I don't want to waste my parents' money." And I think they thought it was a little dramatic, so they called my parents, and then on the phone, I remember my dad just kind of comforted me saying, "Hey, Ping, you just enjoy your classes. Don't be so stressed because it is normal that you don't know anything and then you will learn. So it's okay. And then like after 2 weeks, mom will be there. So she will be able to help you." So that's the beginning of how I started learning English. So absolutely it helped because I was there for 2 months. And every day, like Monday to Friday, I had like at least 6 hours of class. I think like from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And every day I'll take the light rail, like the train to the school and walk from the train station to school. So, and then by that first week, my grandpa walked me to the school like every day to train me how to get my way around. And then so I told him that, I don't get what the teacher was saying. And he said that, oh, you can just tell them if you don't understand. You just tell them, sorry, I don't understand. And then I couldn't actually make up the words because like I didn't know what that word is, and understand is such a long word for me at that time. So then I could only remember how it sounded. And then when the teacher was telling me something and then in a very exciting way, I couldn't answer much. I only say, sorry, I don't understand. And so, yeah, that was a very humbling point of my life. And I wanted to learn, and my mom came. So every night we would do some memorization with the vocabulary, and she would test me, and I just go along with the curriculum. One thing, it was very important for me to gain engagement and interest over these years is because I joined a youth camp during that time. So in Australia, it was the winter time. So they had a winter youth camp. My uncle told me that, hey, why don't you just go with that English church group because, you can learn English and then they're your age. You can kind of just interact with local kids and all that. So I guess I was pretty bold at that time. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Because like I've been to camps before. It couldn't be that bad, right? So I went there and I realizing, oh my, I really couldn't understand a lot. It's just everyone was like Asian Australians and they talk so fast. They're like native speakers or even second language learners. They still speak so much better and faster. So I was pretty frustrated and disappointed with myself, but at the same time, I really wanted to make friends with them. So that kind of built my motivation because I really want to keep touch with them. At that time, there was no like Messenger or WhatsApp or that kind of or Facebook yet. So we left each other's email. And then in order to type out emails, I need to know what to say. And then I remember when I was in junior high, the emails were very short because I couldn't really converse a lot. But I will get their email and then I'll be very happy to read them. And I also try to use the online chatting software. One of them was called ICQ. So if you're old enough like me, you probably have used ICQ before. So then I chat with them sometimes, and then I also try to find some the pen pals, like language exchange, or but more so it's like English pen pals from the website, and then we start talking. I started talking to so many strangers on internet, but I just wanted to learn English. But because in Taiwan, I couldn't find anyone to speak with me. So then I thought, okay, maybe I can type because it's easier. And then I can also learn from their typing. I can check the dictionary and all that. After coming back from Perth, I actually changed my perspective because I was like, oh, wow, I really want to learn English. And this is something that I already get a head start. So when I joined junior high school, I was so interested because I love my English teacher and she was the homeroom teacher as well. But then after I guess this first semester of junior high, I felt the stress of studying and the workload of like every subject that there are tests, exams every month and all that. So it was just quite depressing for me after the second year of junior high. And in Taiwan at that time, junior high was 3 years. So from 7, 8, 9 grade. And it's basically prepping us to go to high school or tech school and kind of deciding the pathway. So after the 7th grade, the 2nd grade, I had a change of teachers, and also our homeroom teacher was supposedly to teach us for 3 years, but then she left the school. So then we had a new teacher who was a male and also an English teacher. I just didn't like my teacher, and I was like, I don't really want to learn English from you. I'm gonna study on my own. And so that's the dynamic. I was trying to learn in English on my own and not listen to the English classes at school. What I did is actually listen to a program which is still existing in Taiwan. It's called Let's Speak English. It's an ESL program provided by some American workers, teachers in Taiwan, and then they have this TV program, and also they put the audio on the radio. So I started with very simple, basic phrases that they taught, and I listened to it every morning. I think I remember on radio. Yeah, there used to be radio, and then a machine with a cassette tape. It was next to my table. So then I think at 6 a.m. I usually wake up and then turn on the radio. As I was getting dressed up and ready, I will listen to the program and repeat after them because they really engage students to repeat after them. And at school, I will borrow the magazine because they do have TV show, radio program, and the magazine. So all three of the things are the same. It's just in different formats. So I'll borrow the magazine from my classmate and read it to see like, oh, there are skits or the vocabulary and then some translation as well. I was very interested and I think I did it every day because the program is like Monday to Saturday. But then I can read the magazine every day, Monday to Friday at school. And after school, I usually get back at home around like 5:30, and there was 5:30 or even a little earlier. There was this show, it's called Magic ABC, also taught by ESL teacher, but she was a Taiwanese and she aced her TOEFL at that time, so she had her own English program on TV. So then at that time, I will watch that program every day, also Monday to Friday. When my mom is cooking in the kitchen, I would just sit there and watch it. And she was very interactive. So she will always say, like, repeat after me. And then these are the words in this context and all that. And because it's for kids, those programs, so they really made it interesting to have skits. They have some scenario, like how to use those words in a sentence and all that. So it's usually like a vocabulary and then used in a sentence. I learned it that way, listening to 2 programs every day for 3 years. Also, there was like a reward system at school because after I listened to Let's Talking English program, and they had a listening contest happening at our school. And then it usually took place during nap time. Like, yeah, in Taiwan, we had nap time for about 40 minutes. And then so I'll go to another classroom, take that listening test, and then I will receive like a gift for attendance. And then if I kind of ace the scores, I'll get another gift. So they will have that kind of test every month, and then I'll just get a free nap hour on my own to do this kind of contest. So it was very interesting because I felt like, oh, this is something that out of the burden of the school, and I could actually do it and have a sense of achievement. Another way that I actually started it was to watch multiple movies. When I have them on TV, I will rewatch them. I like to rewatch movies, especially if they're like romance, comedy, that kind of thing. Usually in Taiwan, the foreign language movies are not dubbed, so they will have captions. I don't know why. The culture in Taiwan is just like very much of a caption culture. So a lot of things would have English and then Chinese captions. So I will watch them, I read the Chinese, and I listen to their tones and voices, and I'll repeat after them sometimes. So I always joke that I was like a parrot because like I repeat after those actors. All right. The next section is about my junior college or high school. This one is not applicable for most of the people, but I still want to share something out of my experience because I do think it is meaningful for my learning. So I went to this junior college because I didn't want to pursue high school. High school for me at that time in Taiwan, it was just a extension for junior high. So it's very academic focused. And I didn't really like to study a lot of things. I like Chinese and English. So I was better in those humanities subjects. I couldn't do well in math, chemistry, physics, or even like history. So I was only, the best grade was only English. So then I wanted to go to this junior college for 5 years, with 3 years of high school and 2 years college, majoring English and minor French. So then I tested in, by the grace of God, actually, I couldn't do it without his grace. I got in, and I felt that was like a dream come true, because I prayed for a lot of times at the final year, like ninth grade in junior high, because I really want to get into this junior college. Then I got in, and everyone speaks English. Like everyone has interest in English, and then most of us, we were passionate about languages. So then I went in and learned English and French for almost like a double major for the first 3 years. And then a lot of classes are like so every language was divided into like 4 or 5 subjects. So if it's English, then it was like English speaking, listening, reading, writing. And I remember there was also a class of grammar. And for French, there was like pronunciation, because it was a very new subject for us. But all like both of these languages will have like 4 bands, just 4 bands of the subject. So we basically learn it in a very specific way. And I remember some of the classes were also divided by our grades. So for example, if we're in a certain percentile, like the top percentile, then we'll be in class A. And then if we're ranking like the second percentile, it will be class B. And then there was like class C. I think the most was like maybe 3 sections. And then we have different materials for different levels. And by the end of the year, or maybe by the end of a semester, they will review our final exams scores, grades, and to decide if students can move up or need to move down to different sections. I feel I was privileged because I kind of had a little bit more English than a lot of students because of that 3 years of immersion. So then I was always in class A. So I never knew like how people kind of move up or move down. I never had that experience. And I never knew that was a privilege because I didn't think about it a lot. But right now thinking about it, it was like, oh, I guess I went to the right place at the right time and with the right skills. Not all the students were enjoying learning languages like me. So for me, learning English kind of takes another personality because the culture behind that language is very different. And then so I feel it takes a lot of imagination for me to think outside of my own culture, own language, and then trying to imitate someone who's speaking English, for example, on TV or in the textbook and all that. So that really takes like a dramatic genes for me to kind of get into the scene. So for example, if I'm practicing a conversation from the textbook with my partner from class, then I need to pretend that maybe I'm a middle-aged lady doing shopping and then asking how much the fruits are. So then that, I think that theatrical dramatic element was there. And it really helped me to get into the character. Those characters, of course, they speak English. So I do feel this is one of the tips I will give to other people is kind of almost like immerse yourself into that character who is speaking English. And then imagine yourself, we're different people when we're speaking in a different language. So I kind of abandoned that Mandarin grammar or the vocabulary, kind of just jump into a new language and embracing how people speak in a different way. So for example, there will be different terms used to describe something different, like specific things. For example, today I went out and then we were talking about the third wheel. So like I was meeting my friend and my mom was also there. My mom said, oh, I don't want to be a third wheel to you. However, in Mandarin Chinese, we actually said that we don't want to be a light bulb. It's kind of like, we have a couple of friends and or couple, and then the third person will be like shining the light bulb, and then just kind of getting irritating for this couple. And then that's how it is said in Mandarin. But then in English, it was the third wheel. So I try to remember that kind of scenario, how I will say something in a different way. It definitely takes a lot of humility and time and effort. I would say I work hard to study whatever is taught in class and do homework and learn grammar. I wouldn't say my grammar is great, but because I listen and speak so much, so then I kind of just got rid of that translation part of different languages, like the interlanguage part of Chinese and English. Yeah, so that really helped me a lot. And also still at the same time, I would rewatch a lot of movies. And then I think in high school, I kind of changed this caption to English because I already understand a little bit more of English. So reading the English subtitles actually helped me to form by reading and listening. So then my language component can sync together. And also in junior high school, my parents gave me another graduation gift. So I went to Perth to the same school and met the same church people again to kind of re-engage myself. And then every time when I went back actually twice in the junior college. And every time I can talk to them a bit more and to engage these friends. And also I think that kind of really pays off and also gave me a sense of achievement and a sense of belonging. I know that I'll never be like them, but I really want to reach my goal of being able to speak to to English speakers. And because of my school environment, I also had the chance to talk to to people from different backgrounds, or I was engaged with like English storytelling, speech, or drama, skits, or even poetry reading, that kind of contest. I try to immerse myself into those kind of activities and contests. So that a big chunk of my extracurricular activity was engaging with the English language events. And I was also one of the representatives to go on behalf of my class for those contests on campus or off campus. So yeah, like it's almost like giving myself a task, a mission to finish, and sometimes with my own, sometimes with some other partners from the same class. So yeah, I do feel like getting the right things that I enjoy, getting the right way to practice the language will really help the learning process to be fun. For example, I do like drama, I like theater. So then I engage myself with those things. And so one way I'm enjoying my hobby, and the other way I'm practicing English in a very different scenario. So that kind of helps me. If you're someone who likes sports, I would encourage you to start learning English around sports, right? If you like basketball, baseball, or soccer, you watch the games and listen to how the anchor or the host or are talking on TV or on the radio. It is helpful for us to build those contexts around a practical language. And some people like cooking, some people like gardening, or different kind of things. I guess I had this habit when I was in junior college, is like to start searching something English and then try to find the target information in English as well. So then it's not just learning English, remembering grammar and vocabulary. It is also kind of like an authentic material from life. And I can learn knowledge through a different language. Now I'm going to talk about some of the habits I have in life that really helped me. In college, I also went for a major of English literature. So a big chunk of my time is still learning English and majoring that. So it's also not super applicable for those people you're like, if you're learning some other subjects, you just want to pursue English as another subject. But I would say shadowing is very helpful when I learned it in junior college. Shadowing means if you play a video or an audio file, when they say something, perhaps it's a TED Talk, they say something, and then when you listen to it and then you repeat what they're saying, that really helps us to build that understanding, awareness, and also the fluency. So it's not just listening, it's also speaking, repeating after them. So it's always there's a little lag and then repeat what we hear. Sometimes you can start slow, like on YouTube there are so many videos, and then you can kind of change the speed and play accordingly. If you're more used to it, you can make it faster. Some people might ask like, oh, so do I just go through video by video? I will say actually it will be helpful if you stay on the same material for a couple of times. So if you feel this TED Talk like is in your field, your field of interest, and you want to practice shadowing with this video, you can start slow and then kind of speed it up as you go along. Repeat it several times, because a language is not just vocabulary, like word to word, it's also sentence to sentences. So repeating with the whole sentence would really help us to form like a sense of language. So as you can hear, like you know, I speak in chunks, right? Like if people need to be fluent, it's definitely gonna be chunks of sentences. If it's not a whole sentence, but then at least phrases. So not many people will speak it word by word. That's just not a regular speaking speed, right? So this is shadowing that I find it really helpful. And then there are a lot of resources on YouTube or online that you can find about shadowing. Another one I already kind of talked about it is to use English as a tool to find different knowledge. Make it useful, you know, especially when you're intermediate or advanced learner and you want to advance in your language skill. Try to get involved with more authentic materials, for example, YouTube videos, news, or like professional articles. Usually English will have a lot of resources than the other languages. For example, Chinese. A lot of Chinese articles or knowledge were translated from English. So by getting to the trend earlier actually helps me to know, oh, this is, for example, language teaching or language learning. And then I get some information and tips from different videos. That actually helps me because a lot of knowledge or ideas or trends are missing in some other languages, like non-English languages. So I think that's another good way to learn. And about the attitude, learning a language or learning itself I don't really think we can oversaturate. Our learning would never saturate. And a language is like kind of a living thing. We cannot just stop here and then not keep learning, right? So it's a lifelong learning process for a language and for a lot of other things. So the attitude of mine is just keep listening to news, keep learning new words. If I don't know words, I'll look it up and I'll ask my friends like how to use new words and all that. I remember first came to the US, I asked my friend, what does "that's what she said" mean? Because this phrase is like, it doesn't make sense for me. Like I couldn't understand what it means. And then my friend would tell me some examples and scenarios how I use that phrase and just putting that sentence in context for me to understand. I understand that there is no direct translation to Chinese, but she was really helpful for me to build that understanding around this new phrase. And don't give up, you know, since it's a lifelong process, it takes patience, persistence, and determination. Don't give up, because I always encourage my students, language is something that you learn and they kind of just is a drop of water to your bucket. There's no holes in your bucket. So then it's like every drop counts. And then you might not see a lot of progress when you only have 10 drops. But then when you have 20, when you have 50, you will see a difference. And I always encourage my students to look back, just think about when I was 12, I couldn't speak a word and I couldn't understand what the teacher was saying. But each year, when I do like a review or evaluation, I know I'm making progress and I'm improving. Take some time to celebrate because some of the success are so minor and so small, and we forget to kind of pat ourselves on the shoulder and tell ourselves, it's like, hey, great job, right? Great job, Ping. You've done so much. You invested so much time in learning something new. And most of the time, I was in Taiwan. I only came to the US during 2017. So then most of the time I learn English in Taiwan. So then it's also very difficult. I think my effort is worth celebrating. I will encourage you to do the same thing, because if you're listening to this one, it means probably you're interested in learning language or English. My English is not perfect. And that's also one of the reasons I want to do this podcast, is just to practice independent speaking and all that, public speaking. So you can still hear there are some mistakes and errors from my English, but I think I can get by to communicate enough to talk about my stories and all. So, don't give up, and you're doing great. Keep going. Some of the listeners asked me some questions. One of them is what is the hardest thing in learning English? Very good question. I think when people ask me, what are your tips of learning English as a second language? I said, I don't really think those tips are hard to do. As you can hear my stories before, it was not hard to do. I kind of just follow whatever was given, but it is hard to keep it persistent because our life is busy. And especially if you don't have a major of English, you might have other subjects to worry about. You might work, you might study, and you have a lot of things going on. So to set aside of the time and also keep doing it, keep learning it is the hardest thing. So I do feel like we can create opportunities and context, and also maybe fellow learners, like peer learners, they are helpful. You guys can cheer each other on and continue to learn together as a group, because learning alone is so boring. And learning as a group, we can always share resources. Another listener also asked about, when learning English, is it important to learn different dialects, or, if there are different accents and usage of words in different regions? Of course, for every language in different areas, it is spoken differently. However, I do think learning the foundation, like if you focus on American English or British English or Australian English or whatever English that you focus on that, because at least you will have a great foundation. And then all the other dialects is kind of like the bonuses. So if you learn British English and I realize, okay, I need to learn some American English, then you started listening to different things and then kind of catch the phrases and all that. And I wouldn't say it is very hard to switch that code. Maybe accent is harder to change. However, you're still speaking English, right? I think as long as you can communicate, it takes a little bit of time to switch A to B, right? But then you can still communicate, and most of the basic things won't be that much a problem. I guess that's it, and I hope you like my content. And if you have any other tips or any stories regarding to learning English, please feel free to reach out and let me know. And also at the end of this episode, I do want to announce that I will be taking 2 months of vacation time, because it's been 2 years of Chai with Ping and I never took a break. I really want to take a break during the summer, especially when I'm visiting Taiwan and just doing some other projects. I will be looking for guests to do live streaming on Instagram with me. So if you're interested, share your story. I might have you over on live streaming. And yeah, Stay tuned on my social media because I'll be posting videos and pictures of my life, and I just love to connect with my listeners. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you after summer. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to Chai with Ping. If you think someone will benefit from this episode, don't forget to share it with them. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you like my show, you can buy me some chai with small donations. Details are in the episode notes. Till next time.